Good evening. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge from Monday, May 24, 2021. May I ask Rich Morton to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rich. Can I get a motion to allow trustee Tony Schiappa to attend by audio? He is under the weather, but wishes to attend tonight. So we need a motion to allow him to attend. So I have Al making the move and Anita second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
trustee Matal, trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Schiappa,
No, he can't vote.
Abstain.
It's allowing him. Okay, 5-0. Motion passes. Tony, you may attend by audio. With that, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll call for tonight?
trustee Francis,
Here.
trustee Schiappa,
Here.
trustee Pavesa, trustee Snyder, trustee Matal, trustee Smith,
Here.
6-0.
Mayor Grasso, here.
Oh, Mayor Grasso.
Okay, so we're all, the full board is in attendance and the mayor's here. All right, there are no presentations or public hearings tonight. Next, that takes us to item 4, the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, opened for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5 minutes A, approval of regular board meeting of May 10, 2021. B, receive and file plan commission of May 3rd, 2021. C, receive and file plan commission of May 17, 2021. D, receive and file economic development committee of May 5, 2021. And E, receive and file pathway commission of May 13, 2021. That takes us, that takes us into 8C under considerations. Approval of recommendation to award the 2021 crack sealing and parking lot seal coating contract to Denler of Mokina, Illinois through the Municipal Partnering Initiative joint bid in an amount not to exceed $90,000. D, approval of recommendation to award the 2021 pavement marking contract through the DuPage County Division of Transportation joint bid to Precision pavement makings of Pingree Grove, Illinois, in an amount not to exceed $20,000. E, approval of recommendation to award the 2021 hydrant painting contract to GO Painters, Inc. of Maywood, Illinois, through the Municipal Partnering Initiative joint bid in the amount of $29,946. F, approval of recommendation to authorize payment of annual fee for the Vigilant Learn database in the amount of $5,200. G, approval of vendor list dated May 24, 2021 for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 in the amount of $336,459.93 for all funds. And H, approval of vendor list dated May 24, 2021 for fiscal year 21-22 in the amount of $244,353.98 for all funds, plus $180,030.97 for the pay period ending May 15, 2021, for a grand total of $424,384.95. With that, can I get a motion to approve the following items on the consent agenda? 5A through E, 8C through H. Moved by
Second.
Snyder, second by trustee Matal. Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
Trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Skiappa,
yes,
trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to item 6, ordinances. A, consideration of an ordinance amending the Burr Ridge Municipal Code regarding public participation at public meetings. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. This is prepared in response to a request by trustee Francis at the previous board meeting. Ultimately, the ordinance was made at the request of the village attorney, who also wrote the ordinance. I'd be happy to turn it over to Attorney Durkin to explain further the mechanisms of the actual ordinance. But that is it for staff. We'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, this ordinance amends several sections of the village code. It first adds to section 2.68, another section 2.68.1, which discusses, which actually sets forth the philosophy that the board is trying to operate meetings in an orderly and dignified fashion, trying to prevent people from engaging in an activity that disturbs those orderly proceedings of the village board. With respect to public comments, there are certain requirements. Each person is required to state his name for the record. Some municipalities previously sought addresses, but you are simply authorized to have the person recite their name. If they're representing a group or a committee, they're supposed to disclose the officers or organizers of that group or committee. There's a 5-minute limitation on public comment unless such time is extended by the presiding officer. Questions and commentary shall be limited to the business of Burr Ridge. We're not looking to have public comment on matters that this board has no authority over, such as something happening in some foreign country across the ocean. Commentaries to be directed to the presiding officer, the chairman or chairwoman, unless that person permits the individual to address other board members or other village officers that are present. The rules provide that questions or commentary are to take place in a professional manner with mutual respect. It prohibits profanity being used, abusive language or personal attacks that are described as sexist, ethnic, racist, or similar derogatory language. The presiding officer of the village board meeting has the authority to reprimand any person that violates those rules. That's in another section of the ordinance. And it also provides the authority to terminate such public comment if that person, I believe, comment or activities arise to the level of a public disturbance. Of course, the presiding officer has to use common sense in how abusive the language or conduct, rather, I should say, is elevated to before exercising that authority. But it's the presiding officer that governs the activities and conduct of the participants or attendants at a meeting. The ordinance goes on to provide that whether comments or public participation is being made via the internet or through in-person attendance, the rules provide that those are covered under either of those scenarios. The other rule is that members are not to engage in conduct or other conversation that have the effect of disrupting the meeting. So if someone else has the floor and is speaking, you want to make sure that civility is maintained within the meeting and that the business of the village board can be conducted. there's restrictions on people moving around the board meeting while the board meeting is in session, except you can enter and leave the room, obviously. And as I stated previously, the presiding officer at that village board meeting is empowered to reprimand or expel persons violating the provisions of this section of the ordinance. The board goes on to direct that all other committees, subcommittees, commissions, any other public bodies that are part of the village of Burr Ridge government adopt rules regarding public participation. Actually, those rules, I believe, under the statute are to be adopted by those individual public bodies. Lastly, you have certain rules of order that appear in section 2.67 of the village code, which required some modification. There, you used to have in your code two different times for public comment, one for non-residents and one for residents. That was eliminated a year ago approximately, but that rule wasn't changed in the ordinance eliminating that. You changed actually your the order of business that's found for these village board meetings in that code, but that rule 16 was never stricken. So that rule is stricken, and rules 17 and 18 are renumbered respectively as 16 and 17. So that's pretty much all the contents of that ordinance.
Thank you, Michael. So we haven't, just so the public knows, we haven't changed the time for someone to speak. We've always had a 5-minute rule. This continues that 5-minute rule. We're not telling someone they can't comment or how they can comment in terms of substance. That is not affected here. What this is addressing, I believe, is essentially decorum at the meeting, which unfortunately recently has been lacking in certain circumstances. And this is only to bring home the point that decorum is expected of the public, just as it is expected of board members and village officials in any public meeting. So with that, we'll start with questions and comments by the board, and then any questions or comments from the public. Any board members have any questions or comments on this? Yes, trustee Francis.
Yes, thank you. As you recall, fellow trustees, I had asked for this ordinance modification to be brought forth for your consideration. It's unfortunate we have to go this route, but as within the last 2 years, some of our board meetings and most recently the Plan Commission meeting of May 5th was disrupted by certain individuals, disruptive behavior, speaking out of turn, speaking while others are speaking, and while someone else has the floor as recognized by the chair. Also, there were disparaging and unfounded accusations leveled against Plan Commission volunteers who volunteer their time and energy for this village at no pay, disparaging unfounded comments leveled at them, and also ethnic slurs that were labeled against a particular ethnic group by members of the public who attended this meeting. So I felt that it was now the time that the public be brought forth to some sort of accountability, some sort of decorum, so that they can participate in these meetings in a professional and a meaningful and respectful manner, and respecting the other residents and other citizens that are speaking. So with that being said, I agree with what's being proposed this evening. There is no censorship. There's no freedom of speech being attacked. You can say what you want. You just can say it, and you have to say it in a respectful, considerate manner, and not infringe upon the rights of others. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Anita?
I just feel that the Zoom meetings came on because of COVID, but the code of conduct should be no different than a meeting inside the boardroom or in the village hall. So people should respect the trustees and the officials and the manner of conduct that is supposed to be, we should have for the board meetings. So I support what the council said.
Anyone else? Yes, Al?
over the years, in the past, the meetings have been considerably more civil than they have been lately. And due to the lack of decorum over the last year or two, I can see why that there's a necessity to tighten up our rules and regulations.
Thank you. Anyone else? Tony, do you want to make any comment?
Yes, I agree with Trustee Francis's comments, in the fact that we do need to tighten up. I did participate in that planning commission meeting. It's pretty simple to have respect for the people, for us. We are working for the residents. We're trying to do the best we can for the residents, and calling names and derogatory terms and not going to accomplish anything. We're just working towards getting to the goals for the residents of the village. And if you can't follow the simple rules, we're going to have to just tighten them up. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, any member, let's start with anybody in the boardroom, and then we'll see if anybody else is called in and wants to comment. Anybody in the boardroom want to comment? Yes, Rich Morton. We can get that for you. Yes, why don't you give us a quick second here?
Good evening. My name is Richard Morton. The need to have this policy, I think, has become crystal clear over the last 2 years. I've seen public comment come to defame residents and board members alike, and that has to stop. The veil of civilization seems to be thin. There is nothing in this policy that I read, being a somewhat frequent commenter to this board, that would prevent me from making my comments to this board. And I see nothing in this that is objectionable to me. I do note, however, there is an issue that is not addressed, and wonder if it could be addressed. And that is people dialing in via or connecting via Zoom, Team, or whatnot, sometimes are anonymous, phone number or a pseudonym, and wonder if the identification of persona can be enforced for anyone that is calling in on Zoom or TeamViewer or whatever. I think it would be reasonable to try and enforce that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Anybody else in the boardroom that wants to speak on this agenda item? Okay, we have 3 or 4 people, as far as I can tell, that have called in.
There's a hand raised by
Yeah,
Mr.
and
Silver.
so that, I was gonna say, I saw one hand raised. I believe Mr. Silver is not a resident, but I'll give him a moment. Is there any other resident that's called in that wishes to speak first? Elena Galinsky, there you are. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Elena Galinsky. I'm a Burr Ridge resident. I wanted to understand if yourself or any of the board members or the village administrator or the attorney, if he's there, can just clarify whether this ordinance is also restricting the timing of when comments can be made in terms of both during, addressing specific agenda items as well as the public comment period.
No, that's not the intent of this, nor does it say that, but Mike, you drafted it. Am I correct?
Well, the Open Meetings Act requires that there be public comment at the village board meeting. It doesn't require that there be public comment after every individual agenda item or before an item is acted upon by the village board. You can have public comment at the beginning of the meeting, at the end of the meeting. But Burr Ridge allows public comment throughout the meeting, as was evident at the beginning of the meeting with the consent agenda. Was anybody looking to have an item pulled? There is no modification of those internal practices of the village. I would think that these rules would though apply to conduct during the meeting and when you're participating because you've been granted the floor. So it's public participation as opposed to the elected officials at the dais.
Does that answer your question, Mrs. Galinsky?
Yes, thank you. I think it's definitely appreciated and valuable in terms of getting the residents and other concerned parties feedback that you do sort of retain this Burridge custom, shall we say, of allowing consideration and speaking of people, for the different items and not just holding it to, the beginning or the end of the meeting.
That is certainly our intent to continue the way we have always continued. In fact, the hope of this new ordinance is to get back, my favorite phrase lately is back to the future, get back to the way meetings were conducted on a regular basis in the custom of Burridge. And we will, as long as I'm sitting here at Center Chair, allow people, even if they're not residents, to comment on agenda items. And of course, we allow all public comment on anything related to government at item 9, public comment. That will continue and remain, and that is the full intent of the board and the staff. Okay, anybody else before Mr. Silver here? Anybody else have their hand raised? I don't see anybody else raised. Okay, Mr. Silver, go ahead. You have the floor.
Good evening. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in the room there. My name's Ben Silver, and I'm a community lawyer with the Citizen Advocacy Center. CAC is a nonprofit, nonpartisan community legal organization dedicated to access, accountability, and transparency in local and state government. I'm speaking out tonight about the proposed public comment policy, and I ask the board to table the policy until it is rewritten in compliance with the Open Meetings Act and the free speech and association protections of the First Amendment. The policy, as proposed, includes unconstitutional content-based restrictions. The public comment portion of meetings under the Open Meetings Act is a public forum, subject to the full protection of our state and national constitutions. Free speech in the United States allows the government to prohibit only a very limited set of subject matter, and courts have repeatedly invalidated subject matter restrictions. Just last year, Hinsdale District 86 reached a settlement on this exact matter after enacting a ban on naming specific personnel during public comments. The settlement and legal fees cost the district over $40,000. Furthermore, the policy as proposed compels speech that would inhibit the ability of individuals to freely associate by requiring disclosure of the organizers of any group. This is also unconstitutional. I was not aware before the meeting of what had prompted this, and I do understand that public comment and other portions of the meeting can get very heated. But there is room to conduct an orderly meeting without including provisions that violate our First Amendment. I'm available to answer any questions that the board or public may have on this or any public accountability topic at bsilver@citizenadvocacycenter.org or 630-833-4080. Please consider tabling this ordinance tonight. It'll save the board and taxpayers a great deal of time, headache, and money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silver. Is there any other public comment? Okay. With that,
Comment? I have a comment. Hello?
is there another person whose hand is up?
Yes, hello?
Yeah, please identify yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Patricia Davis. I'm a Burr Ridge resident, and I tried to raise my hand before during resident comment and wasn't recognized, but that's okay. I want to correct Attorney. No.
Okay. I'm sorry, we didn't, everybody whose hand was raised, I've called on, but maybe it's your mechanism. It's not at our end. Go ahead, Ms. Davis.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, anyway, thank you for recognizing me. And my comment is that I want to correct something that Village Attorney Michael Durkin just said, which is that you folks would recognize public comment during the consent calendar, and tonight you broke that rule. You did not ask for public comment on the consent calendar. And as you know, resident Elena Gazelinsky is a Princeton graduate with an engineering degree. She asks very pertinent questions of this board, and very often she pulls things off of the consent calendar. So tonight, Attorney Durkin, you folks broke your own rules. You didn't ask for public comment during the consent calendar. So I would hope that you would follow your own rules before you throw rules on top of the public. Thank you. Have a good night.
You're correct. And I misspoke. The public comment portion was a mischaracterization. The rule that the board enforces for the consent agenda is if anybody asks for an item to be removed. That's an unusual requirement, but it's a Burr Ridge requirement. And my comment should be corrected that this ordinance is not intended to restrict that practice. So thank you for pointing that out to me.
Right, but I did read, we traditionally read, that any board member or citizen, if he or she so requests, we will remove the item and discuss it. In fact, I had the additional language added when I became mayor again, that it would be discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting, which, as Mr. Durkin points out, is still very unusual, and you won't find that in many other villages.
And Mr. Mayor, in addition, the consent agenda is designed to eliminate public comment or comment even by the board. It's supposed to be only include items on the agenda that you're going to vote on by one vote. And if somebody wants to discuss an item, the practice is to remove that. So it will allow for discussion.
And just to finish up my thought, and then I'll get to you, Trustee Snyder. Ms. Kalinsky is used to this. In fact, at our last meeting on May 10th, she was the one who asked for certain items to be taken off the consent agenda, and we addressed her comments, and she gave us a number of questions, which I have asked staff to continue to address with her. And I saw some email correspondence that they followed through with that in the last couple of weeks. Ms. Kalinsky has also submitted some more questions, and I'm sure staff will answer those. So I think we followed all of our processes. Trustee Snyder? Make sure your microphone is on, please.
You've spoken correctly. I was going to state that Burr Ridge resident Delinsky did bring something up and we pulled it from the consent agenda based on her recommendation. So yes, we're following Attorney Durkin.
Okay, is there any other public comment? I don't see anybody else with their hand raised, calling in. There's nobody else here in the boardroom. And is there any other comment by any trustee or? Yes, Al.
Mr. Silver called in and wanted us to delay our vote. And I'm asking our attorney, is there any reason why we should?
Well, Mr. Silver raises issues that if you allowed every type of comment, then I guess you could safely say you are complying with the First Amendment rights to free speech. I would caution the chair, who is the person that is charged with enforcing these rules, to admonish people that are violating the rules, reprimand them. I don't know how many bites at the apple you give somebody before their conduct rises to disorderly conduct. But certainly if I'm sitting here advising the chair when that conduct is going on, I'm going to recommend, be cautious, because, they're not all speech is protected, but very, very, very little speech is unprotected. Fighting words, and the classic example is you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Somebody says a swear word or uses profanity or an ethnic slur, I would suggest that your first action isn't to simply cut them off and expel them. But this is a public forum, and people's conduct is going to be open to the public, and people choose to act in that manner. You do the best that you can to bring order to the meeting. I would say expelling somebody is a very, very last resort.
Right, and I think that all comments that have been made tonight will be observed. I believe that, as I stated before, there is no intent to cut off debate, cut off considered speech. Even we tend in this village even to allow people to say something 2 or 3 times. And that is also something that you won't find in many places. There is no sign-up sheet here Someone tried to have a sign-up sheet here. This board objected to that wholeheartedly, as it should have. We don't have sign-up sheets. The fact that this ordinance does give the chair the power to ask someone to recognize who they are and identify who they are, I think that's only fair, that someone not make up names. And what we've seen in some of the Zoom and chat rooms is what we've all come to know is phony names or made up names, and then people comment. It's my opinion that one of the people that regularly uses that forum uses a different name to say things that he or she would not have said under their own name. It's cowardly, and it's something that I won't tolerate as I sit here. But anybody that wants to say what they feel from their heart and their mind, and they want to say it in a way that we recognize is respectful, we'll even give somebody a rubber band and stretch that as much as possible if they get emotional, as sometimes people do. I do on certain issues. That's allowed. Bring your emotion to issues, show your passion. That's allowed. That's encouraged. But not the way some of the, and again, as we all know, this is because of a couple of people, not the typical Burr Ridge person. It's a couple of people that have decided that that's how they want to conduct themselves and try to upset meetings and take them over, frankly. And that just will not be allowed while I'm sitting in this chair. And I know none of you would allow that if you were sitting in this chair. So with all of that, I think this is well advised. I think we've been advised by counsel, and we know these are guidelines. And unless there's any more comment, I'd ask someone to make a motion to approve the ordinance amending the Burr Ridge Municipal Code regarding public participation at public meetings.
So moved. Tony Schiappa.
Second.
Snyder, second. Any further comment? Any further public comment before the vote is taken? You see any of it?
Ellen Raymond, I'll make a comment.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Sorry, I'm coming in late because I was trying to watch on Channel 6.
We're
And
still having problems with Channel 6?
yes, it's not on Channel 6.
Okay, thank you for telling me that. Go ahead.
I want to
Raymond.
thank Ben from the Citizen Advocacy Center for taking the time to present the legal defects in the ordinance. And I just hope the board doesn't use it to suppress our right of freedom of speech and to express our views to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've just said exactly that, Mrs. Galinsky. And Mr. Silver's opinion is well received, but it doesn't mean that he is the authority here. Okay, any other public comment? Roll call, please.
Trustee Schiappa,
Yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. We don't have any resolutions tonight. That takes us to 8 considerations. A, consideration of approval to hire a law firm of Schiff Harden of Chicago, Illinois, jointly with the Village of Willowbrook for legal services for discovery and investigation inquiries related to stereogenics. Evan, want me to do it? As some of you may know, it came to all of our knowledge that it appears our US EPA and possibly the Illinois EPA in league with them actively suppressed information, especially about the emissions that were happening at Stereogenics and Willowbrook. So Mayor Trilla and I contacted other local mayors in Hinsdale and also in Darien. But Mayor Trilla and I and those two mayors all wanted to get more information, just as how complete this hiding of information was from the US EPA. So we've asked a firm that does this, was recommended by the Storino Law Firm, which is also counsel to Willowbrook, that they would, this law firm, Schiff Harden, which I'm familiar with, a very highly regarded Chicago law firm, would charge up to, but not exceed $10,000 to issue FOIA requests, get the information from US EPA, and if necessary, the Illinois EPA, and then give us an opinion in writing about what our rights are under the US Federal Tort Claims Act. And Willowbrook, as you well know, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in their legal fees and expenses related to this. I quickly looked up, we have about $30,000 of expenses that were related to this. There might be more, there might be a little less. You know how active our Environmental Quality Commission was involved in this and how this village was. And Mayor Trilla has also said that he's going to ask his board to pick up either 60 or 70% of the $10,000. So that would be no more than $3,000 or $4,000 to us. For that kind of investment, I suggested that we put this on the agenda tonight to see that we get the information and we can make a considered decision as to whether or not we have rights under the Federal Tort Claim Act. And if we do, whether or not we want to pursue them. So the first step would be to get the information, and that's what this would be for tonight. So it's a built into this is we wouldn't spend anything more than $4,000, probably more like $3,000. So that any questions about that? Yes, Anita?
I had a question for the village administrator. So Evan, you were involved with, and along with Trustee Francis, you were involved with the whole Sterigenics issue. Do you know roughly how much the village spent on fighting Sterigenics, or?
So we spent at least $30,000 on attorney's fees. That is absolutely accurate. We also spent some money on outside consulting in the form of GHD. GHD, as Trustee Francis will recall, did extensive test monitoring for us in our area. We did it at 6 locations around town. We spent money on a lobbyist as well who helped write legislation, represent our interest. It's more like 75 at the end of the day. Purely representing though the attorney fees, mostly Kleinthorpe Jenkins was about 30 though. So Mayor's recollection is accurate in that regard. So hopefully that's helpful.
So this effort would do a study into whether it's worth our while to get reimbursed for our expenses.
Right, and then Willowbrook will take the laboring oar on that because obviously they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
If not close to 7 figures, when all was said and done with them. So, but we have been partners with them in fighting Sterigenics. And I felt that it was important that we partner with them on this. Doesn't mean we're committed into the long term. It only means that we're going to get information upon which the 6 of you can make a decision as to whether or not we want to continue on. Same thing with Willowbrook. They may look at it and decide.
But if we don't do this, then we don't have any chance of getting reimbursed for the amounts.
If we don't get the information, we won't even know if we have a legal basis to make a credible claim.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Guy?
Thank you. So I was upset to learn via this recent government report that the director of the Air Emissions Division of US EPA, the director, forcibly suppressed ethylene oxide emissions data and health hazard data from the public. Directed his underlings to suppress the data, hold the data back from those people most affected by these ethylene oxide emissions. So I feel it's in the best interest of the residents of Village of Burr Ridge and also the residents of surrounding communities that we pursue this information fact-finding mission, find out if we have a legal basis for further actions against the US EPA.
And to Trustee Francis's point, which thank you for making it, that's another reason, Anita. We may get the information, we may decide as the village, it may not be worth it for the Tort Claim Act that we can make for $75,000, let's call it. But we may find some valuable information that our residents, many of whom have already hired lawyers and are pursuing their own, So it may help those residents of Burr Ridge in particular, and some of them in Willowbrook. And that's also why Willowbrook wants to look into this, because it may help our residents in their legal battles with stereogenics. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, any member of the, that's here, anybody in the audience have any comments on this item? Anybody that has called in? Does anybody want to speak on this item? Anybody that's called in, does anybody want to speak on this item? Okay, with that then, can I get a motion to approve the hiring of the law firm of Schiff Harden of Chicago, Illinois, jointly with the Village of Willowbrook for legal services for discovery and investigation inquiries related to stereogenics for an amount not to exceed $4,000.
So moved.
Second?
So we have Paveza, who had the second? Snyder, second. Okay, any other discussion at the board level? Any other questions before we vote? Any comment? Anybody else in the boardroom? Any other comments before the board votes? Anybody that's called in? Does anybody now wish to make a comment? Roll call, please.
Trustee Paveza,
Yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Francis,
Yes.
trustee Skiappa,
Yes.
6-0.
6-0, the motion passes. That takes us to 8B, consideration of a variation from the subdivision ordinance to permit a gated subdivision at Pinecrest Court. Evan?
Thank you, Mayor. If you could please refer to your screen as I'm following along here, providing a quick overview of this perspective. So this is item 8B. This is a request from the owners of the properties at Pinecrest Court to create a gated subdivision. The subdivision known as Pinecrest Court is currently ungated. Subdivision is located on the north side of Plainfield Road between County Line Road and the tollway. We are looking at the County Line Road on the west side of your picture there. Map of the subdivision is outlined in yellow. It's a 6-lot subdivision that was developed in the late 1990s. 3 are developed, 3 more are not presently occupied, but they are owned by property owners already living on Pinecrest Court. This is a self-contained subdivision in that no other streets access Pinecrest Court for purposes of through travel, one way in, one way out. The purpose of the request by the residents is to primarily increase safety for themselves within the subdivision. All of the property owners with an interest in properties adjacent to Pinecrest Court are in favor of the proposed gate in unanimous fashion. Section 9.g of the subdivision ordinance states as follows: that subdivision fences are intentionally not permitted at this point. They're not intended to close subdivisions and are not allowed as gates either for private or public streets. Should like to note that the zoning ordinance does allow at this point by right gates for individual driveways. So you may ask yourself, how do I see gates around the village right now? They either predated this prohibition, which occurred in the late 90s, or it's a private residence. We have many private residences with gates at this time that are legally erected. There's an active HOA, which is responsible for the maintenance of the street and other subdivision maintenance issues. There are really no surface streets or sidewalks in the public area that would be precluded from the general access upon development of the proposed gate. And essentially, there's nothing to transfer from the public to the private sector. There is no public road. We do not plow it. We do not maintain the street. There are no sidewalks. There's nothing that we currently do in Pinecrest Court besides protect it and service it through the fire district. So very few public services are maintained in there at this point. Essentially, what you'd be asking to do tonight is to direct staff, if you should approve it, to go ahead and allow for a gate to be erected through a variation of the subdivision ordinance. That would be to say that you'd be allowing a variation to that ordinance. There is no need for plan commission approval in this regard, as the plan commission deals with the zoning ordinance, zoning matters. This is not a zoning matter. This is a subdivision ordinance matter. And by rule, the board is ultimately the prescribing authority regarding variations to the subdivision ordinance. So again, there's no need for plan commission petition in this particular case. Should the board direct staff to proceed, and the property owners I should see as well in this fashion, there are 2 conditions that we'd ask that you propose for the gate. The first, that it be at least 60 feet from the roadway on the north side of Plainfield Road. This will allow for adequate distance of stacking for 3 cars while queuing at the gate. Second item is that we would request that the gate be equipped with an optical receiver to allow for instant keyless access to the subdivision for emergency police and fire vehicles. The standard is the Opticon emitters sold by Federal Signal. You see, if you're driving around town, you see the light that comes on top of lights when you see an ambulance or a fire truck come through. That's allowing the lights to sense the lights coming through and shift traffic in favor of that particular emergency vehicle. Same concept here. If the police were needed at the gate or within the gate, they drive up with their lights on, the gate goes up automatically without need for key code or other sort of pass coming into the system. There's no need to exchange information. All information is contained with the property owners and their knowledge. As I said, this language affecting this petition is located in the subdivision ordinance, so it is only needing to be considered by the board. We're requesting staff direction regarding this particular procedure. Thank you.
Okay, let's start with the board. Does any of the trustees have any questions or comments? And for the record, the petitioner, the Alikia's family is here, Eris and his sisters. So let's start at the board level. Any questions or comments first? Yes, Joe.
Hear from the petitioner. By your feeling, you really need to have this gate. Before you sit, because we read what we have, and even my son-in-law was staying with his car stolen out of the driveway. No gates in our subdivision. Since the village had no gates for a while. Is there a good reason to help us?
We can't hear you, Joe.
Is this better?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. So if you could give me some guidance, your insight would be wonderful.
If you could, I'm sorry, excuse me, if you could please turn your microphone
Eris,
on.
can you put the microphone on there?
It should say push right at the green light should be on.
Green light on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Snyder, I can tell you that my family, myself, my two sisters purchased this property some 20 years ago. And it was our intention, and we successfully accomplished building subdividing the property and building our homes there. We wanted to live together, okay, in that subdivision. We wanted it to be a private subdivision, and we wanted it to be gated. We had asked for a gate at the time, and we were denied. So that's part of the answer to why now. We've always wanted it, okay? Now, it's because over the years, we've had to deal with a number of issues regarding crime that has chosen to come into our subdivision because of its location. It's the easiest path in and out of our area. It's been used to turn around and get out. I've had my car broken into twice. We've been vandalized. We've had vehicles, commercial vehicles, ranging from semis to box trucks to a fleet of DuPage County snowplows using it to turn around and get out. Okay, this is a private road. It's pavered. We spent the money to have it pavered, and we have a sign that says private drive, but that hasn't stopped anyone from coming in there. My sister was accosted by someone who was sitting in our subdivision for hours. And when she went out to see if they were all right, another car came driving up and came out and accosted my sister. It was a guy that was claiming that we had no right to be checking out who was in our street and who wasn't, and started using all sorts of profanity and tried to intimidate and threaten my sister. That was very upsetting to her as well as me. In addition to that, myself personally, with the things that have happened throughout the years, this past year, I was particularly saddened by the fact that my daughters, upon coming home for the weekend, told me that they were fearful of what I did and were calling attention to my home. And what I did was put up 2 American flags. I put an American flag and a Blue Lions American flag on my in front of my house, and my children were fearful for the attention it was bringing to my home and my subdivision. Okay, they asked me to remove it, otherwise they would have to stay where they were at, which is downtown Chicago. Okay, that saddened me to a great deal that in my home in Burr Ridge, my children felt threatened by the fact that I was raising an American flag in my front lawn. And it was because of these incidents that happened in the past, okay? Not because they have anything to fear of, it was perception, okay? And the fact that we were broken into, the fact that my sister was accosted, the fact that we have people driving through there at all hours of the night, actually scoping out and taking pictures of our house and our home has caused them to be fearful. And with the events of this past 18, 20 months, you can imagine that this was something that brought me a great deal of pain to hear that my daughters were afraid to be staying at home as while I had American flags raised in my house. So that's my personal story. My sister could tell her personal story as to being accosted, and my other sister could tell her about her story about having vandalism done at her home.
I just had a quick question. What is the timeline of these events? Did most of it happen in the last year, or it's been happening over
No, it's been happening.
the last 10 years
yes.
or 20 years? Okay, thank you.
Do you feel safe in Burr Ridge?
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Does your sister feel safe in Burr Ridge?
I do. I mean, I feel safe, although we'll say that the incident was very upsetting.
Why I asked that is to have a gate put in, and we have got a great police staff. They're really on top of it. And having a gated community, or you gate yourself, with everything that I've read, and I've followed up with a few other trustees and listened to their guidance, I just want to make sure that you feel one way, and we're just not doing this, that you feel unsafe. And that's why you're doing this, because the other subdivisions, that if you feel unsafe, if we do something for you, then won't the rest of them come and say, well, we're unsafe in Burr Ridge? We're not unsafe in Burr Ridge.
No, I have
And that's why I just wanted to clarify.
I have to tell you, I feel safe. I'm recounting the fact that because of these incidents, my daughters perceived that they were going to be unsafe. Okay, and that's what bothers me the most. Perception is everything. Okay, I have to tell you that it's not going to keep out people that intend to do us harm. Okay, but if it stops the traffic from coming in there, if it stops someone from being able to park their car and hide while they're scoping out or whatever. I've had peeping Toms come into our neighborhood, and we caught them on tape. But if they have to park on the street along Plainfield, they're going to get noticed. They're going to get noticed. And the same thing was told to me by the police department when we asked them about their thoughts on the matter. And they said that by having a gate, you will be better off as far as these incidents are concerned.
Thank you.
Yes, trustee Smith.
I agree with your commentary. I know that intersection very well. I'm quite involved with the church just west of you. And there is a lot of traffic that comes in from out of the village. And I do see a lot of trucks and vehicles going in and out. So when you mention safety, that is a concern of mine, especially on the Cook County side. And we've got a lot of changes in the laws coming up. We have a state's attorney from the Cook counties that's not exactly tough on crime. So I fully support what you're trying to do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, is there anybody in the boardroom that would like to comment on this proposal, this agenda item? I don't see anybody. Anybody that has called in and wants to put their hand up and comment? I haven't seen anyone.
Ellen Raymond on Zoom.
Sure, Ellen,
Oh,
go ahead.
So I have a question and I can't seem to scroll down and read the subdivision language completely. Oh, thank you. So is this a gate across one driveway entrance or is this a fence around the whole thing like Ombriance?
No, this is a gate, if you could show the, and it is not a fence, it is a request for a gate. You see where it's, almost in dead center. You see, this is a paver private drive. The village does not maintain this. It's within the subdivision and almost where the word pine is, wait, I'm sorry, would you go back to, oh, okay. This shows it would be at least 60 feet from Plainfield Road, there would be a gate. And if approved, the two conditions would be it's at least 60 feet and it would have one of the emergency automated devices that would open the gate in case emergency vehicles had to get in there, police, et cetera. It is only the gate and to stop access. And if you saw the bigger picture, I'm familiar with it too. I know Mr. Alikius, I've been on the property and cars, if you look up the drive, it is a circular drive where cars, and I did check this out with Chief Madden, cars have been known to sit in there and wait for what, I'm not sure, but you can't see them from Plainfield Road. This gate would stop cars loitering. It certainly would stop the truck traffic that Trustee Smith indicated that has been known to go in there and turn around and make what is in essence illegal U-turns. The family feels safe, but this is keeping people out of there and they could be in there doing things in the village in the area and still keep their car from being observed. And I think that makes this situation unique. What I'm sure the board doesn't want to do, certainly what I wouldn't want to do, and I'm sure the board doesn't, is to set a precedent that if you come in here, and you say safety, you're going to get a gate. It's like picking on old people and children. It's always a great argument to make right away. But here, it is fairly well documented. I know the chief is not, I won't say he supports this, but I asked him if he was opposed to this, and he said, no, not opposed to this. He sees the merit in it. Of course, he's going to defer to the board. But if you really look at it, it is a place where cars can hide, have been known to hide, and there has been the truck traffic. And of course, it's Plainfield Road right near county line in Cook County. So I hope that answers your question. Anything more?
Well, what I wanted to ascertain is if it's set a precedent, but you're saying that there aren't other private drives like this that will now come in and ask for a gate and be granted because this was?
Well, not on that basis. They would have to come in just like any other, you're a lawyer, Ellen. They'd have to make their own case and come up with their own facts that would merit the board's decision. This would not be a precedent for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else out there that wishes to comment? I don't see any. Do you? Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Going back to a few things you said, Mr. Alikius, you mentioned cars loitering and burglaries, break-ins, vandalism, et cetera. But then we get the police reports here from the past, from back to 2016, and only one incident was mentioned, and that was an unlocked car that the contents were rifled through. So all these other things happened prior to that?
Yes.
So from 2016 on,
There should be a report of my sister being accosted. That happened.
they're getting into an argument with somebody who was sitting out front. So from 2016 on, these other things haven't happened. The vandalisms, the break-ins, and the damage and so forth. So things have gotten better, it sounds like. But these things you mentioned about cars loitering and burglaries and car break-ins, car thefts, those happen in my subdivision. And the village does a great job to minimize those. The police do a great job being proactive to minimize those things, but they still happen. It's a society we live in. Does your subdivision have entryway camera system that the village monitors?
No.
No. So you may not know this, but the entryway camera system now has new license plate recognition software. So if your subdivision were equipped with those cameras, and if a bad guy came in with a stolen vehicle or a vehicle with stolen plates, or the owner of the vehicle was wanted, had an outstanding warrant, that would immediately pop up on the screens of the police officers throughout the village, and then they would respond to it immediately. And according to the chief, within 90 seconds of my subdivision, and I live on the south side of the village. So that would be an extreme help to keep the bad guys out of your subdivision. We've had we've had trucks turn around in there. They do damage to the sprinkler systems. They hit mailbox stands. But we've had these cameras in place, and they've helped us with that damage. What I tell my residents in my subdivision, I'm a homeowners association president, is that when they see somebody suspicious parked out front, don't engage them. Call the police. Let the police do their job. That's what they want. 9 times out of 10, it's a false alarm, and somebody's pulled over. They're checking their phone for directions. They're looking for an address to deliver something, and so they go about their business 9 times out of 10. So the other time that somebody that may have bad intentions, the police escort them out of town. So I see that with all these things in place, if you have subdivision cameras and these things continue on a downward trend, right now they appear to be going becoming better, that a gate would be a last resort to prevent these types of crimes, not the first resort, the last resort. But our police do a great job in protecting the residents of the village. We all feel safe. I feel safe. My family feels safe. I raise my family here, but there are bad guys out there, and they are attracted to Burr Ridge. Unfortunately, they are attracted to our neighboring villages as well. So at this point, I was on the plan commission when you came before us in 1998. And you told us back then that the reason you wanted the gate was for bicycle safety for your children, so that they wouldn't ride down the hill and go run onto Plainfield Road, and understand that. But now it's because of personal safety and prevention of crime. So I get that. We're all concerned about that. But my subdivision, we put in subdivision cameras, and we have the police can use license plate recognition software to assist in preventing crimes. And when there is a crime committed, they can follow up with the crime easily. And the signs are a great deterrent, and the bad guys go elsewhere where there aren't cameras. So I would ask that you consider that before you consider a gate. Thank you.
May I respond?
Sure.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to comment on the fact that the police do a wonderful job, okay? And they have responded, and they have encouraged me from the very beginning to make sure that if we see anything suspicious, to call them. If I did that, I would be calling on a daily basis. Okay, and at what point do you risk being the guy that cried wolf? Okay, so we have dealt with these situations. As I said, my sister was accosted because she went out to see if everything was okay instead of calling the police. Okay. And that's the one thing. No amount of cameras, okay, and I appreciate the fact that you have cameras. No amount of cameras is going to prevent trucks from pulling in, especially where we're located, okay? And like I said, I've had a fleet of DuPage County snowplows pull in to turn around. What they thought they were doing, I have no idea, but no cameras have stopped that from happening. Okay, we've been maintaining those streets ourselves, okay, and We've had private drive sign up there. So it's not gonna, the camera is not designed to prevent that from happening. Okay, and especially where we're located. You said you're on the south side of town. I don't know where your subdivision is. Mine is at Main and Main, okay? Okay, so that's the thing that I'm concerned with. And believe me, we've looked into those cameras. We didn't know how about getting them put into the subdivision, but we'd be happy to add those as a precautionary measure, both in front of the subdivision and in the subdivision.
Yes, Al?
When I looked at this project, I tried to digest all the information for the gate and a private street. And basically what it came down to what I was interested in, if we approve this, how would it affect the access and egress to potential property owners and their development in the property that surrounds this area? That's what I was interested in, to make sure that this would not hurt anybody's access or egress to potential development of the property around you.
No, it shouldn't have that impact. You see the overview. Where's the overview?
So I think a good way to summarize it as I pull it up is that everybody who has an interest in Pinecrest Court, which this would be, the gate would be securing access to, is in favor of this. There's no other through streets or properties that have spoken up in objection to this that have an interest in the access to Pinecrest Court.
And then basically what I was told is that it wouldn't affect any of the other property around it.
That's correct.
Anita, did you have a question?
So when I was looking, if you can go back to the last slide,
The
with the
gate?
with the gate, wouldn't trucks still be able to do a U-turn there? I mean, you could just go in and try to back out too, in spite of the gate.
I think the point, if I'm hearing him correctly, if I'm using my planner hat, is to say that they would no longer have the option of going all the way around like the subdivision.
Okay, like the
riding on
through
their
thing. Right.
privately maintained pavers. They certainly could use the little bump in front of the Plainfield Road area to turn
Right.
around as anybody would. But the gate would preclude them having full access to the street, driving around the entire cul-de-sac in snowplow fashion.
Right, so if I'm to understand it right, I mean, of course, safety is a concern, but what's really bothering you is the through traffic that just walks on your streets just because it's convenient and.
As I said, myself personally, I feel safe in Burridge.
Happy to hear.
Okay. My daughters have a different perception. Okay, and it's because of the incidents that have happened along the time. Now, I think that everything can be overcome, but it's a perception factor as far as safety and using our street as a turnaround and also to hide, as we've had a number of incidences where people were hanging out there for whatever reason. And like I said, if you were to ask me how many times, countless times. Now, if I were to call every time, like I said, I'd have a direct line to the police department. I don't care to do that. And like I said, if I thought it was a safety issue, I would be calling every day.
Right.
If I thought it was a suspicious activity issue, I would be calling. But
This is a nuisance issue.
it's not only a nuisance issue, it's both a safety and a suspicious activity issue, okay? Like I said, it's at a certain point, I'd be calling daily. One of us would be calling daily because of what's going on. They're using our street for reasons other than a private drive.
All right. Trustee Francis, regarding the cameras, so if there was a suspicious vehicle parked in their subdivision, the police would be notified automatically, or they would still have to call it?
If the vehicle was a questionable vehicle, if it was stolen, if the plates were stolen, or if the person, the owner of the vehicle was wanted, had an outstanding arrest. I believe that Deputy Chief Law Office, correct me, was there anything else, any other criteria? Okay, so those are the three criteria.
Okay, so they would be. How about snowplows that just decide to make a U-turn through?
You know,
there?
it's,
Would they be fined for it or for use? No.
I can't answer that. We have snowplows turn around in my subdivision too, and I'm sure they turn around by you.
Yes.
It's unfortunate. And sometimes they don't make the turn, and sometimes they drive up on the lawn. They hook their blade on the landscaping, and they tear up the shrubbery, and they tear up the sprinkler systems. And we deal with it. So we've had damage because of that from delivery trucks and from snowplows. So.
Very true.
But the vast majority of cars are not stolen.
Okay.
I mean, people, bad guys still are not only in stolen cars. The license plate recognition would be very limited just to known already. I mean, a car can get stolen in Chicago, come up here, hang out, do what they do, and it wouldn't even get into the system yet because they wouldn't even know necessarily it's stolen unless it's reported and gets into the system. And how often do you hear people take a car from our area and they find it burned up down in Chicago, and vice versa? They steal it from someplace, they do what they're going to do, and they dump it because they know the computers eventually catch up with them. So the safer way would be with the gate. It is a private drive. All three people that live there are in favor of it. It's a single family. It is in proximity to county line and Plainfield on the Cook side. It's a very unique situation, and you've got someone who's concerned, and they're all here. So,
Mayor,
yes, Tony.
I understand what he's trying to do. He is on Main and Main. Plainfield Road is a 40-mile, four-lane highway street that goes to County Line Road, which is 4 lanes at 45 miles an hour. So there is quite a bit of fast traffic going past the home. And I understand the proactive approach to what you're looking to do, Mr. Felikius. And I also want to be clear, does your neighbor to the northeast have a gate in front of his house?
My neighbor to the northeast, yes.
Okay, is that a subdivision? Is that a single family?
It's a single family, about 10-acre parcel.
Yeah, that's correct.
And it's right next door to you?
Correct.
Okay, so I also want to get more clarity on why we wouldn't want to do this.
I think it's, anyhow, does anybody want to answer that? Yes, Guy.
Number one, it's precedent setting, Tony. According to staff, there's 41 other subdivisions with a similar situation to this subdivision. And in the past, we said no to those subdivisions that came into the village who requested a gate. Yet all these conditions that Mr. Leakius has mentioned, which are valid reasons for safety and security, all these other subdivisions experience those same things as well. And so my concern is that these other subdivisions will come back and request a gate. And then we become, instead of a community of Village of Burr Ridge, we become the gated community of Burr Ridge. And every subdivision, possibly all 41 of these would want a gate. I certainly know there's other outstanding subdivisions that have come in prior to this and asked for a gate, and we said no. And once this is approved, then they'll be coming back and be asking. So.
Thank you, Guy. Trustee Frenzies.
Anybody else? All right, any other comment?
Would you like to share your experience with us?
My brother mentioned my experience where my elderly parents came to visit me and there was somebody parked on the street, and they called me and they said there's somebody parked on the street and they're not responding. So I went out, and by the time I started coming out, another car came flying through, who was apparently somebody they knew, and verbally accosted me. in a very disturbing manner. So I just immediately flagged my parents into the house and we just went in and called the police.
How long ago was this?
Within the last 12 months.
Anybody else? Okay, if there's no other comment, then we can call for a vote. Public comment, yeah. I've said public comment a couple of times. I'll say it one more time. Any other public comment? Yes, Mr. Morton.
Richard Morton. I hesitated making a comment. We had, in my community, we had an event in the January, February timeframe of 2021, where a car came into our community, one entrance in, one entrance out. The car came from extended stay, as I recall learning, and the two occupants found our parking pads in the back of our community, where they commenced for 4 or 5 hours of frolicking of whatever they were busy frolicking until the car became disabled. At that time, the driver of the vehicle left the vehicle and started wandering away. And the passenger, a woman, got out subsequent to that 15 or 20 minutes later and started wandering around, obviously intoxicated. I went out to see what was the story. This was now about 7 o'clock in the morning, memory serves. And she told me that people like me didn't like her and all these other things, at which point I retreated to the house and called the police. The police responded in very quick order. We had, I think, 3 or 4 squad cars. And eventually the situation was brought under control. The disturbing part to me is, and I think, and Deputy Chief Loftus can confirm this or deny this, at the time, the new Illinois crime bill had just been passed. And we were told that had this occurred later in the year, after some date was met, that the police would have been unable to remove the trespassers from the property. And I think that's a relevant point to the petitioner's action, that they seem to get a lot of traffic coming into their, what to me looks like a private street. And if that's true, that the crime bill of Illinois still will prevent the police from physically removing trespassers, possibly dangerous trespassers, I would be inclined to say the trustees should consider that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Morton. Anybody else? I don't see anybody's hand raised. Anybody else want to comment on this agenda item? Thank you, Mr. Morton. And I think this is at Main and Main. Yes. Oh, you're one of the sisters. Come on up and.
I'm actually yours, but I just wanted to say,
Lisa, because it's camera. Sorry. Yeah, please. I think right there is fine.
I just wanted to say, I had the privilege of raising our children here in Burr Ridge, and we have always felt very safe. And when my husband and my sister-in-law and my extended family wanted to build here, it was because of how amazing Burr Ridge is and the schools and everything else. I was the lucky one who got to be home those 13 years driving our kids to and from school every day. And we are at Main and Main. And so I could not take advantage of the public bus services or anything like that. I drove them to school every day. I drove them back from school every day. And those are memories that I will treasure forever with my 4 kids and my nephews. But it was very ironic to me that I couldn't let them take the school bus because of how busy Plainfield Road is, because the public transportation could not come up on our private street that we pave and take care of. So I drove them. And again, I am grateful for that. That is my honor. But I would bring them home from school and I would say, come home, I'm making you guys snacks. Let's get outside and play. but don't go near the street and you can't ride your bikes there and you have to stay right here where I can see you because of the amount of traffic literally whipping around on our street just because they made a wrong turn or they decided they forgot something or whatever the reason was. I never felt comfortable. It's just letting them learn to walk our dogs on the street, learn to ride their bikes, learn to, just play kick the can like I did when I was little, whatever. It's a private street. We're taking really good care of this beautiful little street, but we didn't feel safe on it, not because it's Burr Ridge, but because of the high-speed turnaround, consistent traffic. And I have made numerous calls to the police department, but I never call the emergency number. And they always tell me, call the emergency number. But I never feel like it's an emergency. I've called, I can't even count. I couldn't even tell you every year I've called. There's someone sitting in our mailbox. There's someone sitting in the street. There's kids parked here. My husband has installed Ring cameras for me all around our house. And we do pick up peeping Toms and people that are probably just innocent kids trying to find a place to park. And then the next day we find beer cans in our yard or whatever it is. It's a great little hideout. It's a great turnaround. It's a great place for an Uber driver to wait for their next pickup. It's a great food service parking spot when they're making deliveries. It's always going on. It's not an emergency. We're not like fearing for our lives all the time. We feel very safe in Burr Ridge, but it's consistent and it's been consistent for the 17 years that we've now lived here. So I think that there's really nothing that can solve it. And the police aren't lacking in their job at all. The question is, do we want that to continue? And so I just wanted to shed some light on it from my perspective as the one who's been there all the time and not wanting to bother the police, but having good reason to call on a regular basis and just not wanting to be a nuisance, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mrs. Leakes, and I apologize for not recognizing you.
That's okay.
It's been a few years.
COVID's done all kinds of things
Yes,
to all of us.
yes.
Thank you for your.
Yes, Joe,
Gary, one last question. Evan, is that enough for 3 cars pulling in?
the 60 feet.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, I think we've let everybody speak who wants to speak on this, and we've asked for public comment more than once. So with that, can I get a motion to approve a variation from the subdivision ordinance to permit a gated subdivision at Pinecrest Court?
I'll make the motion. Trustee Smith.
Smith? I have a second. Avesa, second. Any further comment? Anybody else want to make a comment before we vote? Roll call, please.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
trustee Pavesa,
Yes.
trustee Snyder,
Yes.
trustee Matal,
No.
trustee Francis,
No.
trustee Skiappa,
Yes.
4-2.
4-2. 4-2, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 9, public comment. Public comment. Does anybody wish to speak on any subject? Doesn't have to be on the agenda. Is there any public comment? See any, Evan? Okay, no public comment. That takes us to 10, reports and communications from village officials. Anybody, any
All right.
trustees?
Well,
Anita, I know you always have something fun
Yes.
to tell us.
well, we have a holiday weekend coming up, so I hope everyone enjoys, but in a safe manner. The good news is we will have fireworks for 4th of July. They will actually be on July 3rd at Walker's Park. I called the Pleasantdale Park District this morning and they confirmed. So I think they start at sunset. So that's something to look forward to. Also, there will be movies starting at the Village Center starting June 3rd. But if you go to shopburridge.com, you should see a lineup of events. We also have a fall event in the planning, so I won't let the cat out of the bag yet, followed by a car show, but more details to follow. So everyone have a good holiday weekend.
Anybody else? Tony, I know you called in. Do you have any report of communication?
No, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of things. First, let's start with the worst. I want to show you what occurred during the swearing in, my swearing in particular. And one of the reasons why people who are on, Zoom in, and do the things and say the things that they say. But go ahead, run that. I absolutely will. Congratulations.
Goomba.
So that was Patricia Davis saying effing Goomba after I was sworn in. I hope she was saying it to me and not Judge Casciato, who also is an Italian American. But as far as the mayor of Burr Ridge is concerned, Patricia Davis is persona non grata. She is unwelcomed, as far as I'm concerned, in this village. We do not need people like her. She's always coming in and saying something negative. That's her right. But that crosses the line. That crosses the line. And she is unwelcome, as far as I'm concerned, in this village. Now, a couple of other comments. The CDC has relaxed the mask requirement. I'll read this, which is right from the CDC, as I understand it. The new executive order will remove the mask requirement for fully vaccinated residents in most settings, while the state's Department of Health is also rescinding its mandatory mask mandate as well. Businesses and other such areas may continue to enforce a mask mandate for patrons and visitors, but will no longer be required by the state if someone is fully vaccinated, defined as 2 weeks removed from one's final dose. So if you have Moderna or Pfizer, 2 weeks after your second dose. If you have Johnson & Johnson, it's 2 weeks from your only dose. Unvaccinated residents should continue wearing masks in most settings, and residents should continue wearing masks on public transportation in congregate facilities such as nursing homes and in healthcare settings, regardless of their vaccination status. And finally, next Monday, May 31st, we as a nation observe Memorial Day. This federal holiday was first observed in the wake of the Civil War, where local communities organized tributes around the grave sites of fallen soldiers. It is a day for honoring and mourning the military men and women who have died in the performance of their military duties while serving in the United States Armed Forces. As it states on the fountain out at our Veterans Memorial, all gave some and some gave all. As we enjoy time with our families and friends next weekend, please take a moment to think about and thank the men and women that have sacrificed everything, their own lives, so that we can live freely in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And also in a similar theme, we had just a marvelous Armed Forces Day celebration in May, that Saturday. We got a little rained on, but Janet Kowal, Evan, Russ, everybody that put it together. Russ is on the Veterans Committee. Former Mayor Mickey Straub, who orchestrated much of it. We had a 2-star general show up and tell us his remarkable story. And then we find out on top of all of that, that he's a Burr Ridge resident and his legal residence is Burr Ridge. His brother also lives here in Burr Ridge, and that's how we were able to horn him in for the day. I was, as I always am, but I was particularly proud of being the mayor of Burr Ridge in such a great celebration. And to see so many people show up. It's been growing every year, and I'm hoping that this will spur it on. Armed Forces Day in Burr Ridge, the 3rd Saturday of May. It's, I believe it's May 21st, 2022 next year. Please come out for a bigger celebration. It's really a great time to celebrate all of the men and women in our armed forces very well.
Don't forget about Sue Schaus.
Oh, yes. And Sue gave out the awards and she was terrific too. Who are our two honorees? Patricia Liss and Hartley.
Charlie Hartley.
Charlie Hartley.
Yes.
Again, with marvelous stories. Charlie's story went so long, I thought my term of office was almost over by the end. But really, it brought a lot of smiles, and you can just tell that people want to come out, they want to be together. I don't know how many of you saw the PGA yesterday and what happened at the final hole and how many people are out, but I think, we're unleashing all of this pent up stress that we've had for the last year and a half. So it brought a lot of smiles. Anyhow, with that, we've gotten through, again, a great meeting, good debate. People differed in their opinions, but we reached a considered decision. And again, back to the future in Burr Ridge, this is the way we conduct our business. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn to Flag Day, June 14, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Doing the closed session?
Oh, yes, I guess we are.
Get the recess.
So we have to do that. So I'm sorry.
Yep.
With that, let me get a motion to go into closed session. Let me read the reason. It is for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body under 5 ILCS 122C1 of the Illinois statutes.
So motion to recess. We will be back in session. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
6-0.
6-0. Why don't we take 2 minutes, let people exit, and if anybody needs to get a drink of water or do something else, and we'll reconvene in like 3 minutes. Tony, please stay on.
I do.
Oh, so I leave.
You don't have to. You're on the meeting. Please exit the meeting with the exception of Trustee Schiappa. Thank you. We have an agenda item to consider
All right, let me take it. So number 12, we're on number 12. We've reconvened. Is the public able to join us?
Yes, if they want to, they can.
If the public wants to join, they can. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. All right, so roll call for open session, please. Evan?
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee
Here.
Pavesa? Trustee Schiappa?
Here.
Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Mytal?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Grasso?
Here, we're all present. That takes us to item 12 on tonight's agenda. Consideration of salary adjustment of acting finance director Amy Nelson. Do I have a motion to increase her to $125,000 effective immediately?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have Anita and Snyder second. Any discussion on this?
No.
All right, roll call, please.
Trustee Mytal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
6-0.
Okay, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn to the next meeting, which is Flag Day, June 14, 2021 at 7 p.m. Move.
Second.
Mr. Snyder, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
You.